I don't want to be separate from my wife. As simple as that. So if I was going to be coming on to say, and also I don't want to lie.
With me, and Joni is too. So we're asking you, as a majority of the board, drop this and let's move on with the agenda.
I'm discussing what she was wondering why she couldn't.
We are asking you to drop it.
Have them, and I don't worry about it. You have to micromanage what people think about you.
What's up, guys? Blaze Foray here tonight. Going to be talking about the Jonathan Lamb, Joni Lamb debacle at Daystar. If you don't know me, I'm a co-host of the Wake Up and Win podcast. We've been covering this story and many other situations in the church world where there's SA or there's spiritual abuse or there's situations that frankly just need to be uncovered because of hiddenness. So tonight, I'm going to be diving in because it's late and my wife is resting and getting the babies to sleep. And tonight, I'll be going solo on this channel. So we're going to dive right into the Daystar debacle. Tonight, Julie Royce released a audio. It's like an hour-long audio of a board meeting, okay? It's a Daystar board meeting from November of 2023, November 16th, 2023. Here is some of the important key points. We're not going to be going through the entire thing. I will leave the link for you guys if you want to just listen with no commentary. Feel free. I'd encourage you to do so. I'm going to pull some key points for you for you all that don't want to just listen to the full audio. I'm going to pull some key points. We'll listen to those key points. For those of you that are not in the loop, Daystar fired Jonathan Lamb and Susie Lamb over the last year and a half. Specifically with Jonathan, it happened this past November. With Susie, it happened, I believe, a year ago. So the reasoning for the firing of Jonathan Lamb has been a point of contention. Okay, Daystar says that the reason they fired him is because they had a performance path for him. Now, mind you, this is Joni Lamb and Marcus Lamb's son, okay? He's in his late 30s. He is the vice president of Daystar. He is one of 4 people that were on the board of Daystar. They say the reason for his firing is because he had a performance plan to improve on multiple key points and that he did not improve. And so, therefore, they fired him. Jonathan and Susie say that Jonathan was fired allegedly. This is what they say, and everything that we're talking about here is allegedly, but we'll point to things and we'll give our opinion. This is simply for informational purposes only, my opinion, your entertainment, hopefully your desire to grow in knowledge of what's going on and hold the right people accountable at the end of the day. Because when we just rely on massive organizations to bring us the facts, a lot of times there's NDAs involved and we're not going to get the facts, okay? So our goal is to bring the truth to light and information to light, okay, and let people decide for themselves. Now, Jonathan says allegedly that he was fired because he would not sign this NDA. Let's take a listen to some of the initial comments that are going on in this audio. So let's start first and foremost with, we've got Arnold Torres, Joni Lamb, Tom Callender, and Jonathan Lamb in this meeting. Now, prior to where we'll start, Joni, Tom, and Jonathan are the only board members because Marcus Lamb sadly had passed away in 2021. Arnold Torres was apparently, what it sounds like, the secretary of the board, or he was in there, but he was not on the board. And so Tom Callender takes the lead and says that they'd like to appoint Arnold Torres to be a part of the board. So Jonathan doesn't see the reasoning for that, but he actually disagrees. But because it's a 2-to-1 vote, Arnold becomes part of the board. So he enters the discussion.
You know, these discussions were about trying to get you back to ministry now, you and Susie. Your mother agreed that you would not have to read, your comment like that. We went through that. That was the key point. And well,
that's great, but remember, up until before this meeting, her stance was, if I didn't believe God sent Doug into her life, we couldn't do ministry with her, meaning we never had a chance of coming back. So this is obviously a huge step. So that's good. But I just want to show you where we came from.
Well, so we want to make sure that...
Is that correct?
What we're saying is...
Mom, have you been instructed not to talk?
No. That's not true.
Okay, he just so just to give you some context for this part of the conversation, he says to Arnold Torres is saying, "Hey, we're good to go. You don't have to say things that contradict your religious beliefs." There was basically something that they put together that Jonathan and Susie said, we don't want to have to contradict our religious beliefs in order to work here at Daystar. Now that sounds kind of insane because it's a Christian ministry, but here's the problem, okay? Background, Joni Lamb was married to Marcus Lamb. Marcus passed away in 2021. Doug Weiss was a marriage counselor and therapist that was married to his wife for 30 years. He had been on Joni and Marcus's show many times and had interacted with them many times. I believe that he was even involved in some of their restoration counseling sessions of some sort when Marcus Lamb was basically admitted to having an affair on Joni for 7 years. Okay, so this is the background of this man, Doug Weiss. Doug was married to Lisa Weiss, and after 30 years of marriage, after Marcus passed away, sadly, what is stated, what seems to be the story allegedly, is that after that happened, 3 months later, he divorced his wife of 30 years, and Jimmy Evans confirmed that divorce, meaning he said, you can do it, and I call it biblical in essence, because all the signs show that she was abusing you through neglect. Now, you can have your opinions on whether that's biblical or not. I don't seem to find that in the scriptures anywhere, but there you have it. Okay, so he says that he was neglected, and so he divorced his wife of 30 years 3 months after Marcus Lamb passed away. I feel like this is an important point, and you'll find that as you go on in this recording, because Jonathan continues to point back to the fact that they felt it was necessary to publicly endorse Joni's new marriage to Doug Weiss. Jonathan and his wife, Susie, did not feel comfortable publicly endorsing. Now, you say, what do you mean publicly endorsing? Well, on one of the shows, they were handed a viewer comment card, and they were supposed to read the card. And Susie did not want to read the card because it was a raving review of Joni's new marriage to Doug Weiss. Now, you might say, well, just read the card. You work for them. You just got to do it. Well, they knew that Susie and Jonathan were not feeling right about this. They felt like it was wrong biblically. And that's important when you're working for a ministry, that you agree with what's going on. Now, you got to put into perspective, this is years of working in this bubble for Jonathan and living in this bubble of Daystar. It's his family, right? He was the next up-and-coming president someday. He's the current vice president on the board. And him and Susie are going, wait a second. My parents have always believed in fidelity to marriage. Well, you see what happened with Marcus, sadly. But they had always preached at Daystar that you don't divorce and remarry unless it's for infidelity. And they also preach at Daystar that God can restore marriages. So when they saw what Doug Weiss was doing as soon as Jonathan's father died, they did not feel comfortable with his mom marrying Doug. Now, they say that multiple people within the family felt the same way. So they were uncomfortable. So this is my opinion, fully my opinion. I think it was a testing ground for Joni and the board and whoever else to be like, let's just get them to read this. Let's see if they'll read this. Let's see if they'll fall in line and see if they'll toe the line and run forward with us. Okay? So Susie refused to read the card, and I believe Jonathan refused to read the card as well, thus leading them to this board meeting, finally here in November of 2023, where they had pushed a motion, I guess. Jonathan had pushed a motion to say, please write up something within the bylaws or somewhere in my contract or somewhere, basically pushing to say that I will not have to contradict my conscience in order to work here or my religious beliefs. And so they said, well, of course, and this is what Arnold Torres is saying, yes, you're not going to have to do that. So sorry for the long context, but hopefully that's helpful. So let's hear what he says.
I'm just asking,
I think the comment.
Can you confirm that's where we were?
It would be very difficult to work side by side with someone who was saying that I'm an adulterer and that I'm living in adultery and in sin. That would be an impossible.
Right, but we agreed to keep those comments private and to ourselves. It's not share with anybody.
So Joni says, yeah, it would be very difficult to work alongside you guys if y'all just thought I was an adulterer. I can understand that for Joni, and I can understand that for Jonathan and Susie. Let's go.
For you not forcing us to have to read comments about your marriage or talk about the marriage.
Are you comfortable with the letter that John Lynch sent?
Okay, he says, were you not forcing us to read these comments in support of your marriage? So he's asking his mom this question. Tom Callender tends to this entire meeting. If you look, all of these people are on the board, okay? But Jonathan is clearly the youngest. the least experienced as far as in these type of meetings. And Tom clearly is the most experienced and runs over Jonathan left and right. So when he's asking his mother a question, Tom just says, "Are you comfortable with the letter that John Lynch put together?" Which apparently that letter said you will not have to do anything that violates your conscience or religious beliefs in order to keep working here.
No, I'm just asking, can you confirm that you had that stance and now you've come to this new stance of allowing us to come back and not have to compromise with our beliefs?
I agree. I mean, I wasn't in the meeting with y'all, and I know that's what we agreed to. Y'all came back to me because I
Right.
wasn't in the meeting, and I agreed to the things that we talked about.
But that has nothing to do with anything except the only thing that
No,
I want you to understand. That says that Daystar will not ask you to read anything or make a public statement that goes against your religious beliefs. That's all that does.
And I'm just trying to confirm with my mother to son, if she is going to, if she can look me in the eye and tell me that that's true, that you would stand by that.
I'll stand on what the letter says. Yeah.
Okay? You're comfortable with that?
Yes.
And
Okay.
I want to just say something too. What your mom was also trying to say is,
Because it's better if we can communicate mother to.
Okay, so he's just confirming that before they move on. So let's see. Let's move on here. So you've got at 1945, there's a conversation here that basically they're trying to make restoration. It sounds like they've tried to make restoration, and Tom Callender says something that, well, your mother has apologized to Susie and so on and so forth. And then Jonathan seems to say, well, wait a second, I don't have trust yet because my mother has been calling Susie Jezebel. So let's listen to that.
Everything that's going on.
Even what? I'm his grandmother.
Well, that's why we allowed you to come over and see them. But when you call,
allow me to go buy him a pair of shoes.
but when you call my wife a Jezebel,
Point of order, please.
you lose certain rights.
Okay, so yeah, so they end up talking about their son's birthday party and the fact that they let their grandmother, Joni, come over to the house to celebrate the son's birthday, and he says, but then, which later in the recording you find out that she meets with another person the next day and badmouths Susie and calls her Jezebel. And so what Jonathan is saying is, and obviously guys, this is messy because it's family stuff. It's also business, but it's ministry. And there's some biblical things going on here regarding marriage that I think are very, very important and a little bit uncomfortable for the body of Christ to talk about right now, like divorce and remarriage. I don't think that we're like having that conversation so much right now because it's just so prevalent. But here we are forced to look at it. Now, behind all of this, guys, there is an alleged cover up of child SA. Okay, so with that in play, know that there's a much bigger issue going on here that's caused a lot of this rift and lack of trust. But we'll keep moving through this recording. She called his wife Jezebel.
Jonathan.
Tom Callender jumps in and tries to shut down that portion of the conversation because it makes Joni look bad.
You can have restoration.
Jonathan, point of order here. That is not what we're here for today.
I know, but I'm just saying there's a reason
That's
why.
not what we're here for today.
I know.
Now, you can either, and Arnold, I think you're in agreement with me, and Joni is too. So we're asking you, as a majority of the board, drop this and let's move on with
Well,
the agenda.
I'm discussing what she was wondering why she couldn't.
We are asking you to drop
we can
it.
have a closed session and do all that. Right now,
We're trying to get through the
But you
agenda.
understand why I would not be hesitant to want you to take this out, right?
I can't say that I understand that.
Okay. Well,
Well, wait, I just want to make
so anyway, you came over and
Jonathan, we'll talk about this. We need to stick with the points that we talked about discussing. We need to keep order, and then we will discuss it. We don't need to intertwine all these other conversations. We can have the conversation. Let's let talk.
Submit to the authority of the board here, and let's move through the agenda, okay?
All right, submit to the authority of the board, and let's move through the agenda. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about that, but if you heard the Jimmy Evans audio, they land that word submit 90 times in 90 minutes. They say the word submit 90 times in 90 minutes. I just find it quite interesting that they have to demand submission when some of these contentions are regarding the ability to trust the people you're working with. Now, obviously, at the end of the day, they fired him. They fired him because he didn't sign the non-disclosure is what ends up happening. But allegedly, that's why they fired him. But we'll see. Okay, so let's go to 2233. This is interesting right here because Tom Callender points out that Jonathan Lamb wants a contract, and no one at Daystar has ever had a contract. It's all a free will type of employment. Then Jonathan sits there, listens, and then corrects him for the reasoning why he feels like he needs a contract. So just listen to this.
Position that we're in, where we were
Do you understand it?
potential
The position of the
threatened to
board.
be fired for not reading a card.
Position of Daystar. When I,
So, given that there's insecurity related to, you could lose your
okay, there has been no
employment
action.
for something as petty as
There's
that.
been no action as far as employment or as far as your income
Yes,
is
sir.
concerned.
Right.
For the call for the situation that letter resolves.
Right.
So that letter is now that is resolved. Okay.
Okay, so he says, well, actually, my mother threatened, we were threatened to basically lose our jobs if we didn't submit and read these cards the way they're written, to read the card praising Joni's new marriage. Which, guys, honestly, I'm just going, are you serious? Is that really, like, I'm going to say two things, okay? It's like, is that the hill you want to die on? And some of you might say, well, Jonathan, is that the hill you want to die on? Susie, is that the hill you want to die on? And then others would look, I would look at Joni and say, is that the hill you want your kid to die on? Within your organization, within your family dynasty, within your family ministry, if it still is a family ministry. Frankly, at this point, it looks like, allegedly, she and Doug are going to be leading the ministry until Christ comes. At least that's what one of the recordings that we found recently said, that she admitted to saying that she didn't need her kids, but she and Doug could lead the ministry until Christ comes. But we can hit that one later. So let's keep moving on here. So we've got, let's see. Okay. So 2314. This gets into the presidency, because this, guys, is where what's really interesting is there's so many people saying, oh, well, there was a letter, Jonathan demanding that he would still be the president someday. Because basically Marcus and Joni had put, if something would happen to them, then Jonathan would become the upcoming president of Daystar. He would inherit the ministry. Obviously something happened to Marcus, and Marcus had Joni become the new sitting president. And they were threatening that Jonathan may not continue being the vice president or on the board or have the future to be the president, as there's contentions within him and the board. So he had sent a letter saying that there were stipulations that he wanted in the contract, and one of those being that things would be as they were when his dad said what he said initially. And so let's listen to the way that he breaks it down here.
Now, so one of the other things you asked to guaranteeing you the presidency, okay, of Daystar in your request.
Well, that would be part of the contract, but that's already... Now, we had a secession article sent out, right?
Okay, and you and your mother signed it. I did not. Okay, it's never been signed, so it's not in effect at all. In fact, Joni, if because of the circumstances you have, if you've changed your mind, you can.
I think that means a secession article that's like, you will take over if anything happens. And Joni had signed it, and now Tom goes on to say, hey, if you've changed your mind, you can take that off because I didn't sign it.
Your signature if you want to, okay? But that is not in effect by any stretch of the imagination. And my recommendation would be that we postpone that whole thing until a later date. But I want you to understand there is no resolution that spells out secession.
I remember my father specifically asked for everyone to reply in the affirmative, the board members. So
But that was his will, but
there would
it's
be
never been
an
passed.
email from you replying in the affirmative.
So he's saying, my father said he wanted this. I'm guessing this must have been while he's in the hospital, allegedly. I don't know when this was, but my father wanted me to be that. And then Tom Callender says, yeah, that was his will, but we never affirmed that. It's so interesting.
Which you confirmed to me when
it didn't pass. So then he says, you confirmed to me personally, Tom. This is what he says here.
in Montgomery, Alabama, you actually showed
Let me just be honest
me
with
your
you.
phone, and you said, Jonathan,
Yep.
this is the last email I got
And
from
I still
Marcus,
have it.
and I'm going to do my best to make sure
I am.
follow through with that.
Let me tell you what.
Okay. He said, this is the last email that I got from your dad, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that that happens. Now, my understanding in context of the recording here is that it had to do with Jonathan taking over the ministry eventually. And I just find that it's interesting. So then Tom gets into this and goes on a long thing about how he no longer trusts Jonathan, and he had hoped that Jonathan could grow into that role. Now, I understand this perspective in some ways from Tom Callender, in the sense that you go, okay, is he ready for that? Could he do that? Well, let's lead him into, let's mentor him. Let's raise him up to be an incredible board member. And then let's Let's raise him up to be an incredible board member, and let's, eventually get him to the place where he's ready to take over, et cetera, et cetera. And then Tom says, but I no longer have that trust in you. Let me see if I can get to that point where he says that. Let's see.
Evaluate that decision, because I have seen a young man that is creating turmoil within the company by not supporting his mother, not supporting the president, who has agreed.
He says, I've always supported my mother. I've always supported my mother. This is what gets so crazy about this and frustrating to hear, honestly, is that Tom Callender is saying, I have always hoped that could be the plan, but I've seen a young man who's not willing to support his mother. Okay, and Jonathan, so you got to realize here, Jonathan and Susie are in their mid to late 30s. They're not children. Now, I understand for the generation above us, I'm 42 years old. I understand for the generation above us, our parents in their 60s and 70s, I understand that we're like little whippersnappers, to you guys sometimes. But we are who you were when you started many of the things that you started. And sadly, what we're watching is that generation mishandle the things that God has entrusted them with. Okay? We, as the 30s and 40-year-olds, 35 to 45-year-olds, or whatever it may be, we are that generation that watched and trusted you all to show us how to lead with integrity, with honesty, with biblical clarity, and with the follow-through of a lifestyle that shows the fruit of the Scriptures, okay? The lifestyle that shows the fruit of the Scriptures. And for many, we did see that. And for many others, we didn't see that. And we're watching that play out in real time in front of our face with Mike Bickle in IHOP Kansas City, with Michael Brown and Fire School of Ministry. We've watched it play out with, Tony Evans at this point. We've watched it play out with Ravi Zacharias, who's passed away now. Sadly, we watched it play out with Marcus Lamb in a 7-year infidelity while he's leading the ministry. And so there are so many different scenarios that we've watched like this that we're starting to realize that, okay, there might be a need for questioning, not rebelling against authority. And this is the problem that I'm seeing in some of this, is there's an immediate finger pointing toward Jonathan Lamb as rebellious, or Susie Lamb as Jezebel, or whatever, for questioning based on their biblical understanding of Joni's situation and her remarriage to Doug. And it's not because, and later in this deal, later Tom Callender says, hey, look, I understand that you have feelings. Actually, this was in another recording, but I understand your feelings. This is Jimmy Evans. He said, I understand your feelings of frustration because your father died and your mother's getting remarried. And they're like, no, it's not about just a remarriage because my father died. It is about the context in which this is happening with somebody who divorced their wife of 30 years as a marriage therapist, divorced their wife of 30 years as soon as my father died, 3 months later. So this is an understandable context for saying, I'm not sure how I want to handle this now that my dad's gone. I'm not sure how I want to handle this as far as within the ministry, and if I can say things publicly to support it. Jonathan is in a precarious situation here, and I think the handing of the card on the Daystar television show, I can't confirm this, but I think the handing of that card was the ultimate test to say, they're going to have to say this. They're going to need to fall in line. They need to say this comment in support of the marriage, and if they don't, we'll know where they stand. So anyway, let's keep moving this forward here.
Honestly, I can't trust you. Now, I'm just going to tell you like this. I can't trust you. I've been told 3 things that you would do, and you did exactly the opposite.
Okay.
And that created a trust and a reevaluation in my mind. Now,
could you clarify?
I'll clarify them outside of the board. Be happy to. But that's not what we're here for now.
No, but it's good to know why.
I will clarify them outside, and you know what some of them are. And I will just go with one.
Okay.
You will go.
I like that he's pressing for clarification here. So Tom Callender says, I've changed my mind about some of the ways I thought that you could step into the role. And he says, can you clarify what those are? And he says, well, I'll tell you at least one. You know them, but I'll tell you one. So he goes
You
into
left this meeting, this room, sitting in this position, and I was sitting over there. You were going to write a statement and have Joni and myself approve it as to what was the status of you and Daystar. Okay, you came back and you did not do it, and then later you and I had a conversation and you decided to write it, and I asked you please to run it by Joni and Arnold like we agreed in the board meeting, and you did not do it. Now that to me is completely different than what you said you would do.
Now, hey, great point. You told him to do something. He said he was going to do it. He didn't do it. And then he talked to you again and you said he was going to do it. Then he didn't do it. Now, I think Jonathan clarifies his position of why he didn't do it. But here's what I want to say. The situation and scenario here, I feel for the whole family in a lot of ways. But I feel for Jonathan in this situation because the guy is literally going, okay, do I stick with my conviction on how I'm feeling about, because here's the issue. Allegedly, all of the kids were against this marriage initially. And then now all the other kids have kind of like just hung their hat up and said, we're in it because it's here, and totally supportive, and they still got their roles and their positions in the ministry. And Jonathan and Susie were hesitant. And in that hesitancy, now they're fired. And so the process of going, well, hey, write a letter and show clearly that where you stand as far as this ministry. Jonathan's like, okay, I'll do it. Goes home, probably talks to his wife, probably thinks it over, and is like, I don't know how to write this letter. I don't know what to say. I can imagine that there's a struggle of going, like, the guy is loyal to, number one, the Lord and the Word, but he loves his mom, and he cares about his mom, but part of that in his mind is caring about his mom is actually trying to speak the truth to his mom in this situation and not pretend like he's okay with what's going on here. And that is a tough place to be in. When you're told that honoring an authority means you just stay silent about a situation, I don't think that's the true definition of honoring, whether it's your authority in the workplace or in ministry or your father and your mother. I don't think that has anything to do with silence. In fact, it's speaking up in the right way, the right time and the right way. But guys, frankly, it's hard to even know what that is when you're having to confront an elder in the church or somebody that is a ministry leader, or in this scenario, sadly, somebody that's both a parent and a ministry leader, and it's your job. It's your boss too. There's a lot of things here that I think it's like Tom can say, you didn't write that letter. You didn't write that letter to clarify where you stood. It's like, so Jonathan gets in and kind of explains his position here.
That creates a point of concern in my mind. Okay? Now,
well,
and that's,
there's a very good reason why, because
not making a difference what the reason why is, but that's what's happened to me. Okay?
Well, that's why I need to make sure in the future, if any type of board decision, I make myself perfectly clear if I am unsettled on an issue to not commit to it and say, I need to go back and discuss this with my wife.
And that's where we're headed
and
today.
Figure out how we're working through this together.
We're going to be very, very clear.
Because
very clear as to
there's a decision that was made for being on television. I don't want to be separate from my wife. It's simple as that. So if I was going to be coming on to say, and also I don't want to lie. So I don't want to lie about not being why I was off TV. Like, there's a reason why I wasn't off TV, and it's clear. It's very simple.
And
guys, this is huge in this part of the conversation. This is huge. He straight up says, I want to be in unity with my wife. Well, lo and behold, a minister that wants to be in unity with his spouse. Oh, like, let's fire the guy. Lo and behold, a young man that wants to be in unity with his bride about big decisions. Yeah, that is a great idea. Number two, he says, I don't want to lie about the reason that I was off TV. Well, what is that implying? Well, allegedly, what it's implying, is that they were told to say that they were on a sabbatical. That they were on a sabbatical and like some type of agreed upon sabbatical, apparently. Well, for Jonathan and Susie, it was just like, you guys can't be on TV until you figure this out. When really, they were just on TV not talking about Doug and Joni's marriage. That was not their plan. That's not what they were doing. They were just doing their show. But but it seems that they really wanted them to be in public support of this marriage, so much so that when they weren't, there's like, you're not submissive. You're not submissive. And if you listen to the Jimmy Evans recording, hour and a half, it's kind of a headache to listen to, but you listen to that whole recording, it's 90 times in 90 minutes using the word submit, 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 submit. Now, all of you business people out there, or all of you people just in normal life, not in ministry, will say, well, they're right. They do need to submit. Just in any place, workplace, you have to submit to your authority, et cetera, et cetera. I get that. Trust me, I'm not like oblivious to that. Like, I've hired people. I ran a small insurance business for a little while and worked with a lot of people. But I never once had to use the word submit like that. I never had to use that word. What kind of business where you gotta go in and say submit, 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 submit? That is not the type of business you run. If somebody has a question, then we talk it out. I hear them out. If they have a concern, I hear it out. Now, especially because I was a Christian business leader, a lot of people that were Christians wanted to work with me. So if they had a biblical concern, I would hear them out. You don't just shut it down. But this is a very emotionally charged issue because it's about marriage and remarriage, and it is emotionally charged. So Jonathan and Susie are doing their best to try to do it in a biblical way, but then they're forced to say things on TV, and when they don't, they're not submissive. So I think it's a little overboard to say, well, of course they should have just submitted. They work for them. It's like, well, it's a little more complex than just submit. It's like, now we're in the context of a Christian business, a Christian ministry, where there's biblical reasons why they're trying to push back. That is the whole idea of biblical submission, is actually when it goes against the Word of God or a conviction based on the Word of God, you're actually not supposed to submit. That person is no longer submitted to God themselves, so why would you submit to them? Now, in that case, you might just find yourself having to exit stage left and be like, this is not the place for me. But guys, it's not like that just clicks all of a sudden. Jonathan and Susie had to go through 3 years of this, or 2 years of this type of thing, just to figure that out. So let's keep moving along here. There was another portion of this recording. Let's see. Okay. Tom talks about a power struggle that he's in with Jonathan, and Jonathan says, but I've been put in an impossible position. Let's listen to that. I thought that was a really interesting clip there. Let's go there.
We would never even be in these discussions if I wasn't put in this.
Struggle against the leadership of Daystar. That's what's happening.
If this letter that was put into action...
I'm talking about your discussions right now. That letter's over with.
No, but I'm saying we would never even be in these discussions if I wasn't put in this impossible position of having to pick between...
Share something, share something. This is me looking from the outside looking in.
So he's saying, I've been put into this impossible position of having to choose between. Now, he was not able to get his words out there, but he says, I was having to choose between. Well, I know what we kind of imply what he's about to say. Choose between supporting the ministry and my mom's marriage, or doing what I feel like is right in my heart based on scripture. Now, for some of you guys, you might be like, man, he's just really going overboard on this, like, divorce, remarriage thing, et cetera, et cetera. Like, but if you're living that life, watching this as the son or daughter of a ministry leader and going, wait a second, this guy coming into my mom's life after my dad passed away seems not quite right. Something's not right. That's why every single kid in the family actually sensed that, and many other people did as well, and many people still do. And Jonathan gets into that later. He's like, I can't even post something basic on Instagram that has nothing to do with the ministry without people coming on and talking about your marriage and how it was wrong. So, like, guys, I get that there are all kinds of nuances and situations in which people say this is okay, et cetera, but in this scenario, this young man is watching his mom live an incredible life with her husband, sadly, who also had infidelity, but they restored their marriage. And he said, Mom always believed in restoration of marriages. Mom always believed. And this is what Denise Boggs said as well, family friend. She said, they always believed this. But when I talked to Joni after Marcus died, something was different. She just immediately, she was saying something totally different, and was going to marry this guy, Doug, who just divorced his wife, not for purposes of infidelity. So scripturally, it's hard to find that as a scriptural basis. So anyway, let's keep moving on into this. Let's see. I know there's some other spots I wanted to hit. Daystar has... Okay, so actually this is interesting. 3230, he talks about Daystar's how Joni blocks everybody, and Daystar's always been against censorship, but Joni's blocking everybody that disagrees with their marriage. So I thought this was an interesting clip. Let's listen here.
Exercising at this time,
I-
whether he
Well, it's created that.
I don't
created that.
But that's the difference. Like, Daystar has been against censorship, and that's all you've done ever since Doug Hodges come into your life. You've blocked hundreds of people on Facebook
I
and
have blocked hundreds
Instagram.
of people.
And-
I've blocked the bad comments about you and Susie because I didn't want those
I
comments
don't-
on there about you.
but I can-
You
I
don't-
can
you
handle-
don't allow
I can handle the
comments about your
truth.
mother, horrendous, horrible comments, and you don't leave them on there for everybody to go through and read. I can't tell you the scads of people that have told me, I cannot believe your son would allow that kind of stuff about you on social media. It really shows his heart towards you.
Well, and I think too, when you did that, Jonathan, it created a very
No,
very negative.
her decision to marry a man who was divorced,
That is
got
not the
remarried,
issue.
created this issue that we're in,
Okay.
and that's what.
Jeez, like the kid's not backing down. And some people say, look, he's like at the beginning, they actually say he's rebellious. Tom Callender actually said that at the beginning, I believe, of this recording. He mentions the word rebellious, and like Jimmy Evans seems to point to that in the recording about that conversation as well. It's like, I don't think this kid's being rebellious. He's going, no, we are in this position because of the decision my mom made, which I believe was unbiblical. And she wouldn't listen to counsel about that. And there's other people, not just Jimmy Evans, that gave her different counsel. So, and there's other people that literally left Daystar. I mean, what's his name? Rodney Howard Brown. I don't know what you think about Rodney Howard Brown. Doesn't matter, but he's a pastor out of Florida, and he said when this happened, he said he would no longer have a show on Daystar. Not this now, but like years ago when this remarriage happened. He said, I'm not going to have a show on Daystar anymore. He was in disagreement, like big time disagreement. There was a list of allegedly, there's a list of pastors that were in disagreement. Neither here nor there, but Jonathan is standing up for himself, saying, no, we're not here because I wouldn't read a card, or we're not here because I'm rebellious. We're here because of the decision my mom made, which has put us in a really tough position. So I appreciate him standing up for himself here.
Are expressing their displeasure about, because they know the word of God. Jesus said in Matthew 19:9, whoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery. That was Jesus' words. We either believe that or we don't.
Jonathan, we don't talk about that.
So-
Listen, we talked to you
That's
about-
what created the problem.
We talked to you about, that what's done has been done.
Right.
You're going to be able to serve. You got to put it in your back pocket. And we
Of
gotta
course,
try
but
to
you
control
can't
it.
prevent people from expressing their displeasure towards the marriage, because that's the truth.
But you know what? If they choose to do that, but what we're saying.
And Jonathan's not talking about himself expressing his displeasure publicly about it. He's saying they are blocking anybody online. Joni is blocking anybody online. Daystar's blocking anybody that tells any displeasure about Joni's decision to marry Doug. And so Jonathan's simply saying Daystar's always been against censorship. I mean, Joni's a big Trump supporter, and probably talks about, I've seen clips of her talking about censorship, and there she is saying like they're just cutting off every comment that, I mean, we even saw that whenever Joni did her live statement, that it literally was like censored, that nobody could comment. They didn't allow comments. That is interesting to me.
She can't just stick her head in the sand and imagine that people aren't going to disagree with her marriage.
What we're saying is, first of all, if
Right.
There were thousands of people, thousands and thousands and thousands of comments positive.
And there were thousands and thousands that were
You have a
negative.
small percentage of the other.
No, Mom, that's not
Well,
true.
here's what- here's what-
That's not true.
We get lost in the weeds here, folks.
No, Mom, we could do an audit and figure out
Jonathan,
exactly what they want to do.
please mature to the point that you have a conversation.
Where this counter's coming from. What should have occurred is that the statement put together, we could have collectively put it. It should have come from Daystar because it was about It was about you at Daystar. That's what should have been.
So apparently Jonathan made a statement on his own social media about why he was not on the show. And I don't even know what that statement was, so I'm not going to comment too much on that. But apparently he was getting so many messages and DMs of people asking him, and the board saying, well, you should have come to us and asked Daystar to make a statement, not you make a statement. So Jonathan made a statement, and I guess it went crazy, and he left the comments up. He didn't delete comments or anything like that. So that's what people are, that's what they're mad about. They're like, and Joni's like, well, you obviously don't care about me or have a heart for me because you left negative comments on your feed. And Jonathan's like, no, I was just trying to let people express their opinion, which is a different, here's my opinion. Okay. This is my opinion. It's a generational thing of the old guard versus the new guard. And I just mean, and this is not a blanket statement across the board, but I do find that folks that are in that age group, it's like there's more in that leadership style. It's more of, because honor and respect is so demanded, it's like they have a hard time leaving a comment like that. And trust me, like I get it. We all delete comments every now and again if somebody's just straight up rude and evil, and you're like, just block that person. But a dissenting comment based on a biblical perspective, like I got a guy that comments on a lot of my stuff, and it's so annoying, but I have not blocked him because I'm just like, well, whatever. He just comments a differing view based on his biblical perspective, but it's always kind of annoying the way he does it. And I'm just like, well, whatever. So like, that's this idea that we just have to make it look so pretty. Everything's about our reputation, and we're so about demanding honor for ourselves and demanding respect. Look, your life should demand honor, and your life should demand respect, not having to tell people to submit, respect you, and honor you. Let's see. I think we're coming a couple more things that stick out. Let's see. 35. Oh yeah, this is 35.
Had that been done, whatever it's saying with
Without saying anything else, please do not make these comments. But he likes the comments on there because it fuels the narrative that he's the victim, which he's not, because he was never asked to do anything but read a nice comment about us.
That's not true. I just don't censor. I believe in not censoring comments. It's simple as that. I don't delete or keep. I just have them and I don't worry about it.
You can say-
You have to micromanage what people think about you.
Yo, bro. Yeah, he just brought it. He just literally, I mean, this is his opinion. He's his son, and he's calling it out. He's like, look, you have to micromanage the way things look. And so that's why you delete everything. And he said, I am not censoring the comments, not because I love the negative comments about you, Mom. It's because I just don't delete all my comments. And you don't like to look bad in front of the world, which, you know, I can understand that. Nobody wants to look bad in front of the world. Nobody wants that, right? And thus the whole issue also with, as soon as in the first 3 to 5 days of Daystar, scandal hitting the fan, multiple YouTube channels got warning letters from Daystar's attorney. So it's the same idea of censoring, shutting down for the sake of silencing something that could make you look bad. Now, here we are now where, you know, Marcus Rogers has come in and interviewed Susie and Jonathan, and then immediately after got a call from Joni and said, hey, come interview me too. And so I think she's kind of wising up and realizing, like, you can't just censor everything. You actually have to talk. And my thoughts on Marcus and all that stuff will be probably another video sometime. But let's see. Let's get to the end here where he mentions that they're going to, okay, he introduces the NDA here, okay, and this is why Jonathan says that he was fired. Tom just gets done with it, and he's like, forget this, let's just go.
Prevent from happening now. There's tools out there.
What programmers have I spoken to?
That security breach is the next subject that we're going to deal with, okay?
What?
We're going to come, we have reached out and we've researched, and we have the best way to control that security breach so it never happen again is to use what most of the world uses that we never dreamed we'd have to use or think about, but now we're in a situation where we need it to protect ourselves now and especially down the future. And that's called a non-disclosure agreement. And I'm making a motion that we have a non-disclosure agreement, that we as a board and officers of this company
hold up.
sign the board non-disclosure agreement today showing our support for Daystar and that we will not violate it anymore.
What programmers have I spoken to?
So they accuse him of speaking to programmers negative things about his mother. And he asked, well, what programmers have I spoken to?
So I make that motion.
I just got to ask one question. I mean, I think John Meanwhile knows, we're not getting into it, but for a fact, it's their programmers that Jonathan's spoken to.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's good enough for me.
That's good
Joni's like, yeah, we all know that there's a couple of programmers he's spoken to.
for me. I don't have to have.
I'll make a motion to get going to.
She's not going to violate their policies.
We should not be. We should not be talking to any program.
The only programmer I've spoken to is Ted Shuttlesworth.
This is amazing. I so respect this kid. You know, he also knew all the finances of Daystar. Like, he down to the receipts, down to how much things cost, down to when things were purchased. He's mentioned this. And so what's so interesting is he's just very forthright. Now, I get some of you might be like, well, he's lying because he's hiding the fact that he's recording this meeting. You could say that. I get it. It seems as though he keeps good receipts, though, and he knew that he was going to have to protect himself because it's so sketch, in my opinion. It's so sketch what they're doing to him. And they know they can just pile on here. They're like, we're all going to sign it, and if you don't sign it, you're off the board. you're no longer the vice president. Like it's sketch what they're doing to him. So I appreciate the fact that he went in there and recorded this thing. But he says, yeah, I've spoken to a program. His name was Ted Shuttlesworth.
You're talking about, and I didn't speak to him about. And I called you to tell you about that.
He says, I called you to tell you about that. His mom. That's what he's saying. He's like, I spoke to Ted Shuttlesworth, and then I called you to tell you.
She told me that she knows for a fact, a personal conversation, that you have
Yes,
spoken to the program.
I spoke with Ted Shuttlesworth, and I called to tell you about that conversation that I had in case it was used against me, because it was simply.
I'm telling you, this kid like crosses his T's, dots his I's. Like it seems that he's crossing his T's, dotting his I's, because he's been seeing this coming down the pipe, that they're going to be coming for him. And he's like, yeah, I talked to Ted Shuttlesworth, and afterward I called you, Mom, and told you about it because I wanted to protect myself.
I wasn't calling to badmouth my mom or anything. I was just like, hey, I just happened to play golf with Bruce Beam, and he had known Ted for many years back. So I just like shot him a text like, hey, I play golf with Bruce Beam.
Because of the power struggle that's being created, because of the controversy that is going forth, because of your actions, because of social media.
The controversy that's going forth, the power struggle because of your actions.
Violations that are taking place because of the
Tom Callender here is just dropping the hammer. He's like, we're doing an NDA. We're doing an NDA. We're all going to sign it. Let's see.
And this is Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller has a lot of experience in terms of the companies he has and things that he does. And he brought.
I brought it.
He brought this to the table, and he can talk to John about it. John thought it was an excellent idea. We never thought we would get to a point where we would, be disclosing companies programmers that talk to programmers. They're really outside of this room. There really shouldn't be discussions in any from a Daystar from a negative standpoint, or sharing any business secrets. I'm not saying you were doing that, but if there were, we just don't go outside of here. I mean, if we have issues, are you saying you've never discussed any issues or concerns that you have about your mom or Daystar with anyone?
Well, not with anybody, of course. Obviously, I'm going.
Okay, so he said, are you saying you've never discussed any issues that you have with your mom or Daystar with anyone? And Jonathan says, well, not with anyone. And then listen to what he says.
The fight of my life here, given that.
Fight of your life for what?
Are you?
Fight of your life for what?
He said, I'm going through the fight of my life here. So he's been going through this for like over a year. Not to mention the CSA allegations that are going on in regards to his family situation and Pete and all this stuff. Like it's intense. And the way that he has allegedly felt shut down from pursuing justice properly. He is in what I would consider the fight of his life. Tom Callender says, for what?
She threatened to throw us out of Daystar.
And he says, my mom, Joni, threatened to throw us out of Daystar.
What?
For not reading a card.
For not reading the card supporting the marriage.
What? Has any action been taken?
Listen to this. Has any action been taken?
That's affected your income or your employment at Daystar?
Income, yes.
Okay. Earlier on in this, he said nothing's affected. Tom said nothing's affected your money or your job. Now he's asking him directly, and he says, has any action been taken that's affected your income? And he says, yes, the income.
We get paid on every time we're on television, $100 per on-air appearance.
Okay, and that was withdrawn, but that's it.
Okay, so minimize. Okay, that was withdrawn, but that's it. Look, and I know I've seen the comments. Some of you guys with the Lambs, with Jonathan and Susie. Just so you know, allegedly they've said that Daystar wasn't purchasing them any homes or anything, but allegedly Daystar has purchased other family members' homes and things. So there is a reward for compliance and there is punishment for non-compliance. And apparently they've done all their own purchases. They've made all their own money. They've made all their own financial decisions and taking care of themselves, basically. And some people say, well, aren't they worth this much, this and the other? I don't know. But I do know that it's been a while since their income has changed. And it's been now a month since they basically had no income, that it seems. But the income from television changed just a little bit right there. But it also changed because Susie was done, not getting paid anymore either. And then Jonathan wasn't fired until a bit later. But point being, this is still unjust, regardless of how much or how little. There's injustice happening right here in front of our face, in my opinion.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah, I mean, Susie's been paid, she hasn't done anything.
Yeah. So those reasons and the security and for the future of Daystar, I've recommended that we institute what most businesses have, which is a
okay. Here we go.
Honest and clear
NDA.
and above board refusal to sign that.
This is why Jonathan
your
won't
ability to
sign
be
it.
in this position.
All right, before we get to that, I have to say that I cannot sign that because I have a very good reason why, and it all comes down to trust.
Okay.
So I told you she came over to try to make amends. Went we played a game of Jenga, we talked. Susie was starting to open up her heart, and then we find out the very next day she blindsided one of our friends by asking Hugh Hunt to invite him to lunch with her, and she proceeded to do her huge spiel and badmouth Susie, calling her, Jezebel, saying she's after men like dog, and several other really bad things. After what seemingly was some progress being made in restoring that mother-daughter-in-law relationship, it just completely tore it down, completely broke trust.
Okay.
And then, so we had, again, me and Susie are always trying to run back to relationship. We want to have a restored relationship, but she's done everything she can to break that down. So
he's saying, I don't trust my mom because she walks away from our conversations, which this is where there's like literally this family issues in the midst of ministry and business. It's family problems, right? But it's understandable because everything's mixed. And so, got a little fly running around here. Literally, he's like, I don't trust my mom because when she walks away from our conversations where my wife is opening up to her, then she goes and tells somebody my wife's Jezebel and that she's after men. And I was like, I can't imagine the frustration with that. Probably all around. Probably everybody in this situation is a little frustrated. But listen to what happens next, okay? Because now we're getting to something really strange, which is the trackers on his car. Listen to this.
last week, I discovered a tracking device had been placed in my vehicle.
Let me speak to that.
I investigated.
Hold on, John.
I investigated.
Listen to her. I hear what you want, but I hear panic. Without getting into all of it, everybody at Daystar has a tracker. Every Daystar vehicle has a tracker on it. Every single one. So Jonathan clearly drives a Daystar vehicle. However, Joni says that after Marcus died, these were put on the vehicles. It seems, though, that there's a scenario here, and that was in 2021. But the scenario here is that Jonathan saw the tracker being placed in his car, and the direct report, which is a security guard, lies to him about what he was doing on Jonathan's car. And Jonathan should not have seen that, except for he felt like he should look at the security cameras, and when he did, he saw this young man putting a tracker on his car. Listen to this.
I could determine who was responsible for this violation.
Let me speak to this.
No, I know. This is my turn.
All the Daystar vehicles
I know.
have tracking devices. And this was put into the Porsche after Marcus passed.
Let me finish.
There's a tracking device in my vehicle right now.
Let me finish.
So Jonathan, unbeknownst to Ryan, who deals with the cars, took it to the place.
Let me finish.
And asked for it to be swept, and thought he found something, a tracking device.
Okay.
And then came and they charged $600 and something that he charged the Daystar cards, and comes back and tells Ryan. Or no, lies to Ryan and say it was a recall, that he took it for something to be fixed on the Porsche. And Ryan calls it to make a report of all the vehicles, and the guy said, no, there wasn't a recall. He asked us to scan the vehicle. We found a tracking device, and then Ryan
Let me finish.
and said, why did you say that? Or why did you take out the tracking?
This is so intense because it's like everybody, so Jonathan is like, I am getting followed. I am getting tracked. So then when he's asked about it, he's like, well, yeah, I was just taking it in for a recall. But it's like, okay, why are you lying, Jonathan? Well, because you don't trust your family. Like, I feel like I'm being followed. I think it's pretty intense what we're watching here. Let's keep going what Jonathan actually says here, because in response to this, it's pretty interesting.
We put that
That's
in
not.
after.
This is not true. So I investigated to see if I could determine who was responsible for the violation. I reviewed the security footage and saw that Shannon Kelly, Daystar's director of security, personally placed the tracking device in my car. So I'm going to play a video for you. You have to view it. This is a major breach of trust. That
he says, I'm going to play a video for you. And Tom Callender goes, no. He said, you have to do it. I appreciate Jonathan's boldness here.
I have a tracking device in my car right now.
Let me just say something. Word of God owns the vehicle.
Yeah, Word of God
they can do what they want to do it.
It's not your vehicle, John.
It's not yours.
Daystar's.
this is okay. So here's the video.
It's not yours. It's Daystar's. I put tracking devices in my company vehicles, in my company
This
trucks.
happened after my dad got lost in the Suburban.
That's not true.
Yeah.
We put one after my dad got lost in the Suburban, Joni says.
So we started putting tracking
Well, I put one in Marsha's mother's car because I never could find out where she was. She couldn't tell me when she was going down.
He said he put one in Marsha's car. I'm guessing that's his wife. He said she could tell where she was going, so I tracked her. I think this is all interesting ways to frame what's going on here.
Deeper and deeper. But these are Daystar's automobile,
Okay.
They are.
and they can do whatever they want to
November
with it.
7th. I'm going to play it first for you. I don't know if you remember. So this is November 7th. Shannon comes over to my car.
He might have been making sure that all the tracking devices still, because sometimes the batteries go.
Well, I know, I have them. I've used them my whole life.
Regardless of it, well, what the story is, it's a Daystar vehicle.
Sure it is.
It's not his private vehicle.
No.
So they're saying like he's probably just coming to check the battery in the tracker because the batteries go out. And then Tom's like, yeah, these things have batteries. Jonathan is very patient in this conversation. It's very interesting to listen to him.
That's not, so here he is for 25 seconds messing with the vehicle. And he's very clearly putting his hand into the trunk there on the right. Close enough.
It's not an issue for me. You know, I believe what you
This is
said.
Daystar's director of security.
But that's Daystar's automobile, and he can do what he wants to with it if he's directed to do so. That's the point.
No,
But we're here to the point.
Hey, I'm not done with this.
He's like, we're coming back to, you got to sign this NDA or you're getting fired. And he's like, no, I'm not done. It gets interesting. And listen, I've been through a roller coaster of emotions as I've listened to these recordings and as I've watched this all play out. There's definitely moments where I'm just like, you know, Susie and Jonathan, like they are right about everything. And there's other moments where I'll be like, oh my gosh, this is a great point. This is interesting, huh? And then something else comes out. But where I keep leaning to is I'm listening to the power dynamic is what's so concerning. You got this multi-million-dollar ministry threatening these people that have already lost their income, and it's their kids. And it has to do with a biblical stance on marriage, but also because they've challenged some of the narrative about the abuse of their own child. And so it makes sense. It's to me, it is so disheartening to watch Joni and Daystar treat them this way. Let's keep going.
Kelly reports to me. I'm his boss. So when I saw footage of him doing this, I confronted him on it. And he told me, he was kind of like, what are you talking about, Jonathan? Then I said, I saw a video of you putting something in my car. He proceeded to lie to me. He said, I thought I saw something in the back window.
Listen, Joni's jumping and said, yeah, he does that with everything. He does that with everything. And he said, no, this guy, Shannon Kelly, lied to me. It's a direct report to Jonathan, a security guard direct Jonathan that reports to Jonathan. And Jonathan confronted him and said, I saw you putting something in my car through the security footage. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, I saw you. And he's like, oh, well, I was just, I saw something in your back window. I was just checking your back window.
It out. But that's not true because this car has a cover that goes over the back glass. So
this car has a cover that goes over the back glass so you couldn't see it. This kid knows it. This is wild. Why would the security guard lie? Like, yeah, everybody's got trackers and I put redo batteries in them. Like, if that's really the narrative that Joni's trying to push, then why didn't this security guard just say, oh, yeah, you're the vice president, you should know this, everybody's got trackers and you got one and I'm just fixing yours. Like, what?
He was definitely not checking something that he saw in the window. Yeah. He was clearly putting a tracking device in the car, and this is at a time where my mother and I are trying to rebuild trust, and here he is placing a tracking device in the car.
Thus, back to where we were.
So
this NDA will have every opportunity for us to rebuild trust. Okay?
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Is this guy tone deaf? Oh my gosh. All right. Push the NDA. At 56 minutes in, he goes, let's see.
I would encourage you to read it and rethink your position. I really would encourage you.
Jonathan goes on and on about how he's not going to sign it. And then he kind of ends
yes,
with...
it's my company vehicle that I drive.
It's Daystar's car.
I know Daystar's the owner.
It's Daystar,
but there could have been...
My car has a tracker on it. Right now, the car, the Suburban.
Yes, and we're going to find out because we can have an independent investigation done to figure out exactly when trackers are put in there. And
okay, so Jonathan actually, we missed this part, but Jonathan pushes for a third-party investigation to find out why that tracker was put there, what was it for, and what were the purposes, were they nefarious, why was the guy lying about it to his face. He says, I want to see a third-party investigation. That's a motion that I put on the table. And Tom says, not until this motion's complete. We have to put this motion complete first before we can go to that motion. And of course, this motion is you'd sign an NDA or you're fired or you're off the board. So Jonathan's never going to bring this motion because he's not signing the NDA, which we hear right here.
Figure out if that's a truthful statement. It does matter because you do not put a tracker on the vice president's car and then have the director of security who reports to him.
You are refusing to sign that, correct?
Correct.
Are you excused?
My goodness. Wow. Yeah. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of this? Leave in the comments below. is super concerning to me. Is very concerning, and I think we got to pay attention to the power dynamic at play here. I mean, they are strong arming him, and I believe they are intimidating him and controlling him. He actually says something about that in 51:10. I'm gonna go back to it real quick. Hang on, 51:10. I skipped over that. He really. Let's see.
Second motion.
I just made a motion.
But it's after this one.
No,
I will hear your motion after this was
This
already
is
on the
something
board.
that is all about control. Manipulation and control is what she's been doing ever since Doug has come into the picture.
Call for the question.
There's not an
Manipulation and control is what she's been doing ever since Doug has come into the picture, and this is an example of it. Is what he's saying. That is intense.
to control when you have trust with one another.
Call for the question. I vote yes.
That right there, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's very, very sad. And I think, we just need to pray for this situation that God would truly bring the truth to light. I think if there's any question, if anybody's lying or anybody's not being truthful, it's easy to see in situations like this why someone would feel like they can't disclose the truth in a board meeting when they're being lied about behind the doors, or when they see somebody putting a tracker and they know that there hasn't been a tracker on that car, and they see somebody putting it, and then they confront the person that's putting it and they say, no, I wasn't putting a tracker, I was checking your back window. It's like, it's when you're being lied to in a nefarious way. I understand in some senses for a guy like Jonathan to be like on his heels. It's like, okay, who can I even trust? So some would say, well, Jonathan's just a liar. He's lying. Jonathan and Susie are probably lying. The whole story about Pete walking up the stairs and walks in on their daughter, all this stuff, all these different stories. People are like, yeah, we can't trust Jonathan and Susie. We're not sure what they're saying. Look, at the end of the day, something that I think is really missing from this conversation is the power dynamic of spiritual manipulation and abuse, as well as psychological manipulation, because of you've got your finances connected to your spiritual leaders, your job, and then they're demanding submission, and then they're saying you cannot carry a conviction about marriage and remarriage openly and publicly. You can't differ with us on this. And it's like, okay, do I leave? This has been, my dad was going to pass this down to me eventually. Do I leave? Do I just bail? People are like, why don't you just go? Why didn't you just this? There's so many factors involved in the spiritual manipulation and psychological manipulation, in my opinion, that play into all this, even to the point where they're like, sign this NDA. Sign this NDA or you're out. And he's like, but what about these trackers? We don't care about that. Sign this NDA. I think it's just quite the scenario, and I'm looking forward to talking to Jonathan and Susie. I'm looking forward to talking to them soon. My wife and I are going to be talking to them on the Wake Up and Win podcast very, very soon, and we're looking forward to that. But guys, share your comments below. Share your thoughts below on this one. It's very, very interesting. I think it's necessary. Some would say, hey, all this stuff just needs to go to court. Yeah, sure. But part of the process sometimes is allowing people to see the truth, to see these things. And when you start to see these things, you can discern these things. You don't just have to be told from somebody that says they know everything, but like, let's all look at these statements together. Let's all look at these things. And let's pray that God would judge between this whole situation and uncover the truth and truly bring justice for the 5-year-old child that's now, I believe, 7 years old. That's the most important thing of this whole thing. If there is a predator out there that has done something negative to this child, that predator needs to be found out fast. And that's the missing piece to a lot of this. That predator needs to be found out fast, because predators don't just prey on one person. Usually they find another. And so if there's anybody that needs to be cleared in this legally, I pray that they would be cleared quickly, and that there would be no name ruined, but there would be a clearance, a true clearance. And if that can't be done, then I pray there would be a conviction, and there would be legal ramifications, and there would be something stopped from happening more in the future, and that healing would come to that little girl. Lord, bring justice, bring clarity. Lord, in the same way, I just see like Solomon sitting before these two women holding this baby. Like, I know that's just such an intense example. It really doesn't relate in that sense, but just the wisdom of God must must break into this, the judgment of God, to judge between all this and to truly pull back any veil of darkness, any veil of lies, and let the truth prevail. In Jesus' name. All right, guys. Hey, make sure you subscribe. This is the channel that I'm running for just solo videos. Most of our stuff on this type of stuff, my wife and I do on our Wake Up and Win channel. But again, it's late. I decided to do one solo on by myself. My wife's getting some rest tonight. So subscribe below, comment below, share your thoughts, share this with your friends if you thought it was good, if you like my breakdown on it. All right, God bless you guys. Peace.